So welcome to today's session, and we appreciate you joining. And this is one of a three-part series that we have called Turning Up the Heat. And what we really want to provide to you is an update of kind of where Aruba is from a platform perspective, kind of what's going on in the marketplace, show you some cool demos, talk to you about some of the capabilities that we have to complement your capabilities, and to really arm you with some new information that you can use to go into the marketplace and help your customers. And so Aruba's got a, a solution that they refer to as Aruba ESP, or the Edge Services Platform. And so we're going to talk about today kind of the basic architecture of what that looks like and why that's important to support your customers and their applications. So I'm going to talk for about the first half of the session here, and then Brandon is going to talk to you about some of the security products, and Jon Bussart is going to talk to you and demo some of those capabilities. So we've got a great hours worth of presentation stuff to give you information around these things. We've got two other sessions that are coming up. So the next session is going to be more focused on the platform that Brandon's going to talk to you about. And then the third session is going to go a little bit more into the data center solutions and also the Aruba Central Cloud Management. And that cloud management is extremely important to manage this infrastructure. And if you're an MSP, it's really important that you guys can use that as a service to sell to your customers and manage their infrastructures through that Aruba Central platform. So we know that it's sometimes difficult for companies like yourself to be able to be experts with Aruba in addition to all the other manufacturers that you guys have to support. And the good news is at Ingram, we have dozens of people like myself, like Brandon, like Jon, like Stephanie Famukin, who's on the call, that are here, and we're experts in the Aruba portfolio. Now, some of us are technical, like the people presenting today. We have great resources that can help you become a partner, can work with the marketing programs to help you with any of the special pricing associated with deal registration or the HPE big deals. We've got a team of people that can help you do renewals. And so we've got a whole team to complement your team so that when you need assistance, we're here to help. I'd love to be a system engineer that kind of complements you from a sales perspective. If you need somebody to be that technical resource to jump on a call with your customer, create a bill of material, help you with an RFP, we've got a whole team of technical resources that can do that. Jon's going to show you the Business Transformation Center and some of the demo capabilities that we have that we can use to do demos for your customers. So we'd like to think of this as a partnership between yourself and Ingram around Aruba to make your Aruba business successful. So where's Aruba at today? So if you look at the last quarter revenues, Aruba revenues are up 40% year over year. They're bringing in $5 billion a year. So it was a great 2023 for Aruba. If you look at the marketplace that I'll talk to you about today, Aruba's number 2 when it comes to switching and wireless and the platforms that they sell into. Tons of employees, lots of awards. The next 2 slides, I'll kind of show you the Gartner Magic Quadrant slides that everybody loves to see. But what I'll share with you is, if you take a look at the quarterly reports over the last couple of years, Aruba's growing leaps and bounds, 40-something% per year. And the big boy in the marketplace is not. Their last quarterly report, their total revenue is down 6%. The networking space that they compete with Aruba in is down 12%. They just let go of 4,000 employees in the last couple of weeks. And so the market is changing. And it's changing because the applications are changing, the infrastructure is changing that's required for these applications. And so Aruba is really a platform that your customers should be looking at as this transformation happens. So I'm sure if you've been on any of these presentations with other vendors, you've seen the Magic Quadrant slide. For wired and wireless, it's been around for a long time, and Aruba's been in that top right quadrant for the last 17 years. If we take a look at the SD-WAN portfolio that Brandon's going to talk to you about, this Magic Quadrant's only been around for a very short time, and Aruba's up in that leaders quadrant like you would expect for the 6th year in a row. And so the solutions we're going to talk to you about are considered to be within the marketplace best of breed. They're leading architectures within the marketplace. So you guys can feel safe and comfortable knowing that the products that we're presenting to you today are going to be ones that your customers are going to receive well. The industry receives it well, and it's received well because of the technology that's there, the supports that's there, the management that's there. It's the whole life cycle of everything that you guys are presenting, and the Aruba solution is a safe choice. So this journey of portfolio, if you've been around and watched the HPE stuff over time, you know that HP Networking acquired Aruba a number of years back. There's been a couple of acquisitions over the last couple of years that have enabled Aruba to enter markets that they haven't been in before. And so there's a number of technologies that Aruba has really acquired or internally developed to get to where we're at now. And probably the biggest news was a month and a half ago when HPE announced that they're going through the process of acquiring Juniper networks. So in the networking space, this is huge. So you're taking two of the biggest networking vendors and bringing them together. We're in the process now. The acquisition has been announced, and it's got to go through the board approval. It's got to go through the SEC approval, those type of things. But all of the analysts associated with this basically are looking at this saying there shouldn't be any reason why it doesn't get approved. And collectively, these two companies really complement each other. And so as you are thinking about traditional networking products from HPE, with the acquisition of Juniper, there's going to be an extended portfolio of products that HPE didn't have. There's a lot more security products that Juniper adds to the table. Juniper has great routers. They have a great go-to-market strategy for service providers and some other different pieces of the market that Aruba wasn't really touching. And so as you look at your customer base, collectively, the two of HPE and Juniper together are going to be quite the force within this networking segment. So an extremely important piece of this is that Aruba is part of the greater HPE. And so this is really the architecture that HPE looks at when they look at applications, when they look at AI, when they look at IoT, all of those different things, they put it into an architecture of how does this work with our server platforms, our storage platforms, the Aruba networking platforms? How do we manage it? How do we secure it? How do we integrate it into the different tools that we have? How do we offer it as a GreenLake service? And I'll talk to you about that a little bit later on. But as your customers are looking at doing things like AI, AI is an architecture. It's not a server running software. As AI grows, we're going to have edge computing, IoT initiatives. Those type of things now require edge computing to really aggregate that collection of data. And so as we start to create a different architecture for these new applications that people are rolling out, we really need a holistic view of that, not just a networking view or just a storage view. You really need it as an end-to-end view of how do we roll out those applications and how do we manage those, get analytics on those, all of those different pieces. Now, the architecture from an Aruba perspective looks like this. And this is really that ESP, or the Edge Services Platform architecture. So we'll talk about this over the next few slides, but basically at the bottom, you've got to connect these devices to the infrastructure. Now, it could be the traditional Aruba wireless products that everybody knows. It could be the switching products that everybody knows. Brandon's going to talk to you about some of the SD-WAN connectivity that's part of this. Aruba acquired a company to get into private 5G. I'll talk to you about that. And then part of that is, as these devices connect, we have to provide security. And I'll share with you a couple things around that. On top of those things, you got to be able to manage it, use some AI to make it easier to troubleshoot, to analyze things in a better, different way. And it's got to be able to scale on the top from a branch office to a campus to a data center. And maybe part of that key thing that you need to think about is, how do you manage all this stuff? And really on the right-hand side, that's that Aruba Central, which is part of the GreenLake platform that allows us to cloud manage all of these devices that I'm going to talk to you about. So the first step is really to connect. Now, people know Aruba for wireless, but a traditional wireless has changed dramatically over the last few years. And so if you think about this more maybe as an IoT situation, IoT devices are going to connect to the infrastructure in many different ways. Most of them will not connect with a regular Ethernet cable that you've maybe sold in the past. Many of them will connect with traditional 802.11 wireless, but there's other technologies out there like Zigbee that's been around forever. It's been used quite a bit in the hospitality business. There's stuff like BLE or Bluetooth to connect different devices. And the Aruba APs have a USB interface that we can plug in different connections to provide additional IoT devices that allow us to connect into the network. And so in the past, customers would have to roll out an 802.11 wireless network. They'd also have to run on a Zigbee network. They'd have to run a Bluetooth network. And so you'd have these different networks that oftentimes use the same frequencies and had interference. You had to manage them 3 different ways, and all of those other things that are built up into the complexities of having multiple architectures. Today, the Aruba APs have the Zigbee radio, the Bluetooth radio, the traditional 802.11 radios built into them. So now you can roll out the wireless network for your traditional laptops and tablets and cell phones that might get connected. But it's also a platform that if a customer wants to roll out an IoT initiative, they don't have to do a forklift upgrade because all of these radios are built into it, and it's really optimized for IoT. And so today, more devices in the corporate America get connected with wireless than they do wired. And so as you are having conversations with your customer, make sure you're having the conversation around wireless infrastructure and really, getting that infrastructure ready to be able to handle this influx of devices, like IoT devices that are going to be connected to the infrastructure as we go forward. This is kind of the family slide of the wireless products. There are traditional Wi-Fi 6 platforms, which are the 500 series. There's a newer technology called Wi-Fi 6E. The FCC opened up a bunch of spectrum in the 6 gigahertz range, and these Wi-Fi 6E products have a radio that support that spectrum. So that gives us more capability, more speed, less interference. And so you'll see a lot of new infrastructures being rolled out that are going to have this new Wi-Fi 6E infrastructure, whether it's the indoor APs or the outdoor APs. And we're seeing a lot more requests to do outdoor. So if you're not having that discussion with your customer about doing outdoor locations, whether it be for an outdoor area for restaurants or a university or an arena, there are lots of different outdoor uses that customers are really looking for. So I hope that you are presenting those options with those customers because they're definitely looking at them. Aruba's got a switching portfolio called the Aruba CX switches. And this is a portfolio that starts at the 6,000 at the low end, where this is a little 12-port switch that we can put at a home office, a branch office, a small location. And then as we go up the line, we go from gigabit to multi-gig to 10 gig to 25 gig to 40 gig to 100 gig to 400 gig. So we've got a whole solution, whether it's traditional stackable type switches, chassis type of switches for the core of the data center or the core of the campus, and a whole series of data center switches that we'll talk about in that third session, kind of the 81, 83, 84, 93, and 10,000 series that are focused for top of rack data center switching. But the beauty of this portfolio is a couple things. It runs one operating system called Aruba CX. All of these can be cloud managed in Aruba Central. There's not difficult licensing and all kind of other things that are often associated with enterprise switching platforms. So they've made it very easy. They're all cloud managed. And because it's only one OS, it's easy for the customer's networking team to manage these. Or if you're an MSP, it makes it easy for your team to manage these. Because whether it's that 12-port switch at a branch office or the top of rack data centers, they all run the same OS. So it's not a different hardware platform and OS for the cloud managed switches. That's different than the top of rack data center switches. That's different than the campus switches with different tools to manage it. It's one solution end to end, and it adds tremendous value. And there's one switch I want to talk to you about, which we're going to spend a decent amount of time in that third session, called the CX10K. Now, if you're looking for a unique product that nobody else has in the marketplace, that adds a tremendous amount of value that you should be talking to your customers about, this is it. And so traditional data center switches go on the top of the rack, you plug your server storage devices into it, and they transfer sessions from users or sessions between servers and those type of things within the data center between those devices. But part of what you have to do in the data center is you have to be able to do load balancing across multiple servers so that you get good performance. And if a server goes down, you still have high availability. You've got to do firewall in between the servers to make sure that if something bad happens to one server, it's not going to take down the rest of the servers that are interacting with it. And so if you look at a traditional data center, underneath that top of rack switch, you often have server load balancers, you have firewalls, you have all of these different applications or different appliances that are down there that have to do a special piece of the transitions between these different servers and applications. And so traffic comes into the top of rack switch, it gets routed to the firewall has to do a certain thing and gets routed over here, and then it goes over here, and then it comes back, and it works, but there's a lot of redirections that have to happen based on those particular services. And so with this new CX10,000, picture this as a top of rack switch that has added additional hardware-based ASICs from AMD that do these services on the switch in hardware. So as traffic goes from one server to another server within the switch, we can do firewall services within that switch and never have to reroute it to a traditional firewall that's somewhere in the data center. And we can do it at hardware speeds. And we can do it at a much less cost point. And so the customer gets faster throughput at a lower cost point to take these services and offload them from these other appliances and put them in hardware directly on the switch. So this is kind of a game changer. And then I also mentioned to you that Aruba did acquire a company called Athernet that does private 5G. So this is infrastructure that you can put into a facility that uses cellular devices like a smartphone or anything that has a cellular radio in it to be able to provide connectivity um, within a company. So this could be a large area. Maybe it's a mining site and it wouldn't make sense to try to put up Wi-Fi because it's many square miles. So you can put up a private 5G infrastructure, and the endpoint device could be a cell phone, as an example, that connects to it, and we can provide connectivity that way on the private network. So Aruba is doing a lot of cool things with technology to be able to support these different initiatives. And the private 5G is going to be quite important for customers that are looking at rolling out things like IoT, because a lot of those IoT devices are going to have a cellular type interface into it. So how do we protect this? Aruba does have a zero trust solution. We're not going to get too much into that within these series, but it's there. Brandon's going to talk to you about the SASE piece of it. I want to talk to you about dynamic segmentation, because really this is a great solution to provide what your customers are asking for, which is that unified wired and wireless access. So Aruba's got a technology called ClearPass, and ClearPass will work with Ethernet switches, wireless access points, controllers, and it can be anybody's solution. So for example, this could be Cisco's access points and Arista switches that are part of the solution. It could be Extreme, it could be Juniper, it could be any vendors. So this is a multi-vendor solution. But basically what we do is we create a policy within ClearPass so that when a device connects, we can push that policy to that access device, whether the access device is an Ethernet switch or a wireless access point. And so, for example, if Stephanie comes into the office and plugs her Ethernet connection that's on her desk into her corporate laptop, and she goes to authenticate, it'll get rerouted to ClearPass, and ClearPass will say, okay, Stephanie meets all of these criteria that allows her to get connected to the corporate network. ClearPass pushes these downloadable user roles to the Ethernet switch that she's plugged into. And so now the Ethernet switch has that policy, and it says any traffic that Stephanie does, use these policies. Right? You can block certain things if you want to. You can restrict what VLANs that you go to, all of those things within that policy. But it pushes it. So I don't have to program that Ethernet switch that says on port 20, here are the policies for that port because Stephanie's desk is connected to port 20. It just automatically pushes it. A couple hours later, Stephanie grabs her laptop and goes into the conference room for a meeting and connects Wi-Fi. She connects to the AP. The AP sends a connection to ClearPass, and ClearPass says, hey, we know this policy for Stephanie. She's on wireless, pushes the policy to the access point. Stephanie gets all of her rights. If tomorrow Stephanie jumps on a plane and goes to Ingram in California, she can connect to a switch or an access point out there and have a similar type of an experience. And we can do these policies for different things. So we can have it for corporate laptops. We can have it for our employees that want to connect their cell phone to the Wi-Fi network. So a BYOD strategy. This is huge for customers that want to roll out IoT, because IoT devices generally don't have the security necessary to do things like putting on a certificate, doing the username password pieces that are needed, doing the encryption things that are needed. And so we can take a look at doing things like ClearPass and putting IoT devices on their separate network with their own set of policies. And also allows us to do guest access. And so unified wired and wireless is pretty important. And we've got the security products to implement that. This is a real busy slide. I'm only sharing this with you is that Aruba has this secure edge portfolio. This is what Brandon's going to talk to you about. But what I want to share with you is this. the infrastructure has changed at your customers' locations. You've probably implemented a lot of those changes. As customers have gone to servers in their data center with all the applications, you probably have helped them migrate some of those applications to the cloud. Maybe it was AWS, maybe it was Microsoft Azure, it doesn't really matter. But they've had certain applications that they've migrated over there. They probably have also turned on some cloud-based applications. They're probably running Office 365. They're probably using Dropbox and many other different applications that are there. And so the network has changed. So in the middle, that MPLS network used to be that dedicated network that the carrier carved out and handed them routers so that if any information went from a branch to corporate, it had to go through this dedicated MPLS network, which was typically a T1 speed of 1.5 megs. With all of these new applications out there and everything going through the internet, and we're running at internet speeds, right? So a T1's 1.5 megs. I have 500 megs of internet at my house. Most companies have gigs of internet at their corporate facilities, right? So how do we build a WAN infrastructure that's going to support these new applications and the way that data is going to transfer from either a branch office or a remote office or from the corporate data center to the backup data center or the corporate data center to the AWS solutions that they have out there. So we have to architect these differently. And instead of traditional routers, we really need a secure edge platform that we can provide a higher level of security, but we can also do a lot more routing of information to the right resource. So maybe Office 365, we give them an internet connection, but maybe a Teams meeting, we send across MPLS because it's a different level of service. And so Brandon will talk to you about this. Well, what I want you to take away is that the infrastructure has changed because the applications have changed, and Aruba has a solution for you. So we've got to be able to automate this. Aruba has a platform called Aruba Central, and Aruba Central is the platform that we do all the cloud management. It'll manage the wireless and switching and those type of products. It has AI that's built into it. One of the things Aruba does well is it allows us to have Aruba Central in a few different ways and manage things in a few different ways. So for most customers, they're going to buy an Aruba Central subscription and they're going to manage it through Aruba Central, and that's going to be more of your traditional software as a service architecture. Some customers want that Aruba Central capability, but they don't want Aruba to host it. They want a server on their facility that they can own and manage and control. And so there is Aruba Central on-prem that allows us to do that. You can also, as a reseller, do network as a service and offer that as an MSP to help your customers. And I'll show you that in the next slide. So on the right, if you're an MSP, there is an MSP mode within GreenLake, which is the cloud platform from HPE, that you can go in there and act as an MSP and manage your customer's network and have that as a service, where you bill them a certain amount of money to manage their infrastructure, and your team logs into this cloud portal and sees all their infrastructure. You can onboard their products, you can push software updates. If something happens and an alarm goes off, your team can go in there and manage it and fix it and all those other things. And now as an MSP, you can offer that across the HPE portfolio. So not just Aruba networking, but the server storage platforms also. And the last piece here that I want to talk to you about is really this new thing that Aruba has, where Aruba is now offering network as a service. So you probably have been selling traditional networking products in that standard CapEx model, where your customers are going to buy the products up front, whatever licenses and maintenance contracts up front, and maybe you help them with services to get it up and running, or maybe you act as an MSP and manage it, but fundamentally they own the products. And at the end of the life cycle, there's a process that needs to happen to uplift the old discontinued products and replace it with new infrastructure. So a lot of customers are moving to the as a service model. I'm sure you've done it with your server storage guys, where you've maybe put an application into an AWS type of solution, and the customer now pays for that as a monthly service subscription as opposed to a CapEx subscription. And so HPE does have a network as a service offering now, where your customers can buy an Ethernet switch and pay a monthly note through HPE. So HPE is the company that owns it, and you can get it as the network as a service. As a partner, you get it through Ingram, and then you turn around and mark it up and sell it to your customer, and you can add your services on top of it. And so for customers that want to do network as a service, we can do that with Aruba. So I'm going to pause for a moment here and transfer this over to Brandon, who's going to take you through the next steps.
Awesome. Now, Jeff did give me a couple segues into my portion. So in this section of it, we're going to talk about the Aruba SSE, which is a security offering that Aruba acquired last year called Axis Security, not to be confused with the Axis Physical Security Camera Company. Now, myself, Brandon Atchley, Technical Account Manager, partnered with Jeff Swetland. I cover more the Edge Connect SD-WAN SSC portion. However, me and Jeff cover the entire portfolio and back each other up where needed. Jeff had a really great slide in the beginning talking about some of the resources and offerings. I wanted to complement his slide with some of our email aliases on how you can reach our teams. So we have three main boxes. We have the HPE Aruba at ingrammicro.com, Silver Peak at ingrammicro.com, and Aruba Fed at ingrammicro.com. And this team is in charge of things like quotes, orders, ETAs, and tracking. And then we have the Aruba Day 1 renewals at ingrammicro.com for all your renewal type related questions or concerns. Dropping down into the left side here, we have our category solution specialists. We have Mike Herb, Stephanie Finucane, Connor Pierce, and Danielle Williams. These are our sales-focused resources if you're looking for things like deal registration, escalation on pricing, things like that. Mike focuses more on the data center product portfolio. Stephanie focuses on the Edge Connect and SASE portfolio along with myself. And then Connor focuses on the Instant-On SMB product lines. And then Danielle is the category business owner who focuses on the overarching Aruba business as a whole. And then in terms of the technical resources, you're going to get to see all three of us today, myself, Jeff, and then John doing the demo at the end. But I wanted to make sure you guys had the contacts in case you needed any of our assistance reaching out. You have our email aliases along with the overall team boxes. Now let's jump into it. So first, I like to start with the SASE story because we're really focused on SSE in this portion of it. And then next month, our session on Edge Connect is the other piece to give you your SASE solution. So SASE is really the marriage between an SD-WAN solution and an SSE solution. But in this, we're just focused on the SSE. So SSE really is comprised of these pieces here. So we have our ZTNA, our Zero Trust Agent, our CASB solution, our SWIG, our Firewall as a Service, RBI, and DLP. So all of these solutions living in the cloud create your SSE or Security Services Edge product solution. Now to take more of a glance at the SSE solution from Aruba, I want to mention, right, we acquired this back in last year, 2023. As far as the company itself, I know it's not listed on here, but Axis Security is a newer company. They were founded in 2018. However, why I like to highlight this is because it's such a new company. They already have so many awards for how they're transacting their business and how they built their platform, right? So it's not like these other SSE solutions where they're modular and they're maybe a little bit more clunky. What they really, being late to the game, what they really got to do was see how all the other vendors were doing it and see the shortfallings of them and basically create their platform to be a seamless solution. So it's a unified interface, and John later will take us through and show us the dashboard and see how it's configured and, you know, go through a demo of it and show you how truly easy and you know, efficient this product is. Now, to talk about SSE though, the adoption rate of the poll that was taken over the next 2 years is huge, right? So out of the organizations that were polled, 65% of them said that in the next 2 years that they were planning on adopting an SSE solution. So we have a huge chunk that are looking and researching the products today and seeing what solution they're going to go with tomorrow. Now, as far as The red, I like to highlight the assessing the need, 24%. So we have a huge portion that is already looking at it, but there is still a lot of companies that don't even know this is the next wave, this is the next solution, and this is where the market trends are going. So that's a kind of a big opportunity to help them and kind of, tell them about the benefits of an SSE solution, the growth and moving from our kind of legacy security approaches to this new SSE security approach. Now, looking at the HPE Aruba SSE solution, it's really comprised in these 4 pieces here. So we have the ZTNA, the Zero Trust. We have the SWG, the CASB, and the Experience, the DEM, which is a pretty cool module. We don't really deep dive too much into that one, but I like to kind of give it a special highlight because it gives you the forensic needed to see like what's breaking down, and when users are connecting to different websites or different resources, it gives the team the forensics to see where it's breaking down and how to fix it. Whereas the other 3 modules are more of a security play, and they come into different zones that we'll talk about in the coming slides. So as far as ZTNA, that's typically the starting point people are looking at when they come into an SSE solution, right? 47% of them is buying the SSE solution because the Zero Trust is where they need to begin. Now, Jeff mentioned in his slide that we're not really getting into the full Zero Trust, and that's because there's multiple layers when you put ClearPass in and you do, different things on the network. However, the ZTNA agent is a really great starting point because that helps lock down your clients and allow you to layer policies right on top of them. And this approach within security today is we need to move from the what can I do to not get breached and not get hacked to I'm going to probably get hacked. How can I reduce the fallout from it, right? And that's locking the doors and locking the windows. We need to get past this kind of castle and moat mentality where we build border security and we kind of open all the doors internally. So when the users connect in, they're authenticated, but once they're in the castle, they have the keys to the kingdom. They can go anywhere. Zero Trust is really saying, okay, we're going to authenticate them at the gate, but once they're in, we're going to lock our door. So that way they're not just able to access everything, and we're only going to give them pinpoint access to the resources they need to. But then we see that we still have a CASB and a SWG element. I think the SWG element is going to grow as firewalls start becoming, older, and we're renewing our contracts, and we're looking at, hey, how do we go to the next step? How do we secure our users from everywhere and anywhere rather than just on our networks? Here's a quick chart of all the different solutions that SSE can replace. So things like load balancers, AV, sandbox, URL filtering. However, I like to do the special focus on the right side so we can do things like DDoS, SSL inspection, and VPN connectors, right? The ZTNA is really the replacement for the legacy VPN type connectivity, where VPN is that, hey, I'm going to authenticate you into the network, and then when you're on the network, whatever resources I've given you on that network, you have access to. The ZTNA is locking that down. But SSL inspection is a huge one I like to look at as well, because when you're sizing out firewalls in any type of environment, right, if you're not doing an SSL inspection, there's a huge portion of your traffic that you don't know what's going on with, right? And just because you think SSL is secure, it's not, right? Bad actors can get their hands on SSL and encrypt their, malicious content. So if you're not really de-encrypting that and inspecting that, that's a lot of traffic that could be potential malware. And the SSL inspection that you can offload from your firewall into a cloud resource is a big, benefit, right? Because when you are sizing the firewall, if you're doing the SSL inspection, you have to size at a greater capacity because that's a really heavy number that hits the hardware of the firewall. Now, what do we do different? So the SSE solution was built at a unified interface. So when you're configuring all your different components like ZTNA, SWG, CASB, it's all in a linear process, whereas other competitors, there's different modules that you have to go within. So when you're configuring your policies, it can be cumbersome. And if you forget to do one thing or the other, it's a non-complete policy. As far as the policies that we support in terms of like the applications, we have things like SSH, RDP, VoIP, AS400, old legacy mainframe protocols. So they have you covered from whatever application. So if it's an old homegrown CRM system or tool that your company utilizes, we can still manage and monitor all of that and give secure access while maintaining compliance and making sure we're looking at what the users are doing to lock them down. And then the last one I like is the with and without an agent. The agentless capacity is a huge benefit because it gives us the ability to give our contractors access, and we can do time limits. So that way, if a contractor's contract is up, we automatically cancel out any type of connection so we don't have like a loose end. So 2 months later, that contractor gets breached and now they have a tunnel into our network. We don't have to worry about that with how the SSE solution set up. There's a portal they're going to, and we can restrict those credentials at any time. Now, as far as cloud points of presence, we are in all the major cloud providers, Oracle, Azure, AWS, Google. So when we're connecting the users to their resources or their cloud resources, we're looking at all of the different points of presence we have, and we're selecting the best, right? With the lowest latency, the best, performance. So they're going to jump on. In this case, we're jumping on the Oracle backbone, and then we're getting off of AWS to access our Atmos connector in our data center to access whatever local resources. So it's not just one different cloud provider we're in all of them, and we're talking across them. So that way we're leveraging that backbone and getting that kind of heightened speed and reliability. And then here's a look at the interface that Jon's going to take us through. This just shows kind of the linear approach that we can take from blocking different like countries or locations as far as the applications or the protocols utilized, postures. So if you're client list or the agent based, we can set different types of restrictions and policies. And then to end it all off, just this nice kind of benefits of SSE. A lot of the things I already talked about, but a heightened and easy, simple security, right? So we're moving to that zero trust. It reduces our attack surface. We're increasing the productivity by giving our users a more simple way to connect and, a more efficient way to connect to our cloud resources rather than having to kind of tunnel everything through a data center. And then because it's all through that one portal and that simple approach of configuring it, the deployment times are greatly reduced, and to spin up new applications are a lot easier and simple. So that is my portion. I will hand it over to Jon Bussart now so he can do the demo of the Access SSE solution.
All right, so this is an interactive demo, so you guys can join along if you want to. In chat, I've put this information in there, so this will be a link to a website you can go to, and these will be the credentials. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you access to resources within our Business Transformation Center that aren't normally exposed. So I'm going to give you access, if you know HPE ProLiants, I'm going to give you access to a ProLiant ILO interface, and then I'm also going to give you access to a internal web service that just counts the amount of times that you've been there. But this is, if you want to join along, you can, because I know a lot of people are like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I also have this client here, which I'm going to kind of go through the same process of connecting into. So for example, if I grab this website, I copy and I log in over here, you should see something that looks like this. Then you'll log in as Professor. Oops, I can type. And then put the password, which is good news. Oops, let me try that again. I think I got that wrong. And then if you've done so correctly, you'll see this. It looks pretty blank, but this will be our starting page. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to provision you out some applications so you can get, again, this is without a VPN or anything like that. This over here is the management context. This is the dashboard to the access security solution. You can see I've been testing, your connection in the environment. You can see where I'm connecting from. We've got some information down below here as far as, who's active, who's connecting, what people are doing. And if you guys are connecting, we should start to see you kind of pop up. Now, in the brevity of time, the solution kind of breaks down into a couple different things. We've got these rules, and these rules are for how people are allowed to access in our environment. And these rules will be comprised of basically destinations, or where I can go. And in here, I've got a listing of applications that are internal to the BTC. They're not external facing. But I'm not limited to that. I could also do SaaS applications. So you see we got a couple here. We also have categories as well, and we also have tags. Now, some of these you'll need the client in order to be able to massage or limit or allow access. Some that you do not. What you're coming in is you don't need the client. And basically, like I said, I'm going to create a rule and allow you access to actually this ILO interface here, as well as this web server here. And just to show you I am remote here, I can open up a console here. I can go ping 192.168.181.205. You can see I don't have access to that address. And I also don't have access to 192.168.86.169. Just to show you that I am completely, separate from the network, and I'm not kind of doing any smoke and mirrors things. So this certainly is an isolated network. So let's make up a rule, and let's give you guys access as well as this client access to those resources. So if I go over here and I go up to policy and I create a new rule, and I don't know, we'll just call this our demo. All right, we don't have to get a description. I'm going to select the identity. Now, this identity could be a variety of things. Okta supported, certainly Azure Active Directory supported. There is also a local database, inside access, and that's what I'm utilizing. I've got individual clients here. There is group settings, so I've got all the Futurama users inside the Futurama group. But I'm just going to select Professor Farnsworth because that's who we're logging in as Professor Farnsworth. We also have destinations. Right, where does this person have to come through? What IP range do they have to come through? But I'm not going to set that here. Device posture, whether or not the agent is installed. So I have that. I'll show you that in a little bit. Time ranges, and then we've got destination. So again, I'm going to select the destination. So here's that ILO interface, and I'm also going to add this web server. And this web server, just like I said, just counts the amount of times that you've connected, and I'm going to allow access to this, and that will be it. I'm going to click submit, and then I got to apply these changes, put these changes, and then after a little bit, if you guys are following along, you should start to see those applications show up, and there they do. They show up. And again, I can get access to these. So here is an ILO interface. Again, you're getting access to these resources that are internal on my network, right, without necessarily being internal network, without a VPN or anything like that. I know the password to this server, so I'll log in. You guys can feel free to hack away if you want to. But I can log in there. I also have this web server. It's called Account. And obviously, I've been here a bunch of times. But if you guys are logging in, you'll see it'll be at 1. But every time you refresh, it kind of counts up. Again, I'm giving you access to these internal resources to make sure that you can do so in the most efficient way without exposing. We're kind of looking at zero trust type of architecture. So you're getting access to just the right resources that are inside this environment. All right, so let's do some other things. So one of the things right now that I can do is I can go over and surf to this gambling site. So maybe I don't want to offer that to my users in the environment. If they're connected, I don't want to allow them to be able to do that. So what's the procedure to do something like that? Well, in order to do that, in order to block resources, I'm going to need access to an application. I'm going to need access to the agent installed inside this system. So you can follow along with this. You don't have to. You'll see some things as I kind of click through this. So I'm going to close this. We're going to go back on over to the management interface, and I'm going to go inside. We're going to edit this. This was that rule that we created. And this time I'm going to select the device posture. And this is going to be the Atmos agent. And I'm going to click submit again, and then apply changes. And we're going to commit these changes. And then in a little while, we're going to see, because I don't have the agent running, these are going to disappear. So you notice they've disappeared because I don't have the agent installed. And if you're following along, that should have happened to you as well. But now watch what I'm going to do. We'll close out of this real quick. And I'm going to go launch that agent over here. Now this is sticky, so once you log in, you'll stay logged in, but I've logged out of this. So let me log in. Again, same user. So Professor and good news. Oops, looks like I spelled something wrong. There we go. And then I'll connect into the environment. Right. And then if I open up the user portal again, in a little bit, the application should show up. Am I paused? I'm not paused. Let's close that out and launch it again. All right. There we go. And then my applications can show up. So I need to have the agent in order for the applications to show up. But so far, that hasn't done us a lot beyond making sure we have the applications, because I can still get to this poker site. So let's block that inside the interface. So I'm going to close both these sites again. And we'll go inside the manager context. I'm going to add a new rule. All right, no poker. And then we're going to go down here. We're going to say device posture again. I want to make sure I have the client installed. And then the destination. Now I can pick out destination. You can see you have different things, but I can just start typing things in like gambling. And there it is. I can select gambling. We'll leave that at blocked. I'm going to click submit. All right, and I'm going to apply changes, commit those changes. All right, and the changes were applied. Sometimes it takes a little bit to get pushed down. All right, but if I go over here and I open this up, all right, again, if I go over to this site, I still have access to my applications. But if I go to Poker Kings, we could still get there. Hang on, give me a little bit. Let's close out of this. Let's try this. Let me pause this and let me resume this. Let's try that. Right. And then we can see that we've been blocked from going to that site. So I'll accept this. Oops. Okay, let's just try that again. All right, oops. Well, it's blocking us from getting to that site itself, but we could still get to the applications if we wanted to get to those applications that are inside our environment. But the moment, a lot of people are smart, so maybe they'll stop or they'll turn this off. What will happen is I'm going to lose access to my applications, right? But then I might be able to go back to that website, but I don't get access to the application. So that's kind of the story behind access and the way it allows you to be able to get access to your applications. So again, allowing without a VPN people to get access to resources that are internal on your network, right? And whether they're internal or external, blocking them from getting to other resources by using the agent inside the environment. And real quick, while we're here, we can also go look at the identities if we wanted to. Let me see. So identities, and just give you an idea of the type of things that you can add into this environment. So certainly an access ID. Actually, let me go over to device postures, I think it is. There's different types of ways. I'd have to dig into it. But this gives you kind of a quick view in how to be able to get access to resources inside your environment. We're kind of at the top of time, so I'd go dig into that a little bit more. So I'll kind of hand this back over to Brandon.
Perfect. Thanks, John. So yeah, and that's it within the time limit that we had. That's what we could demo, but that tool really is in depth, right? John could go through and he could set different policies, agent lists, time of day. He could put temporary policies, right? It's really a super robust tool, and you can even go in and do like credit card numbers, and you could have it search so that way if somebody's trying to download credit card numbers, it can block users based off of a string. Right, so it's a super powerful utility, and it ties into a lot of the other Aruba products. Next session is going to be March 6th, and that's where we're going to do the Edge Connect and SASE integration. So we're going to talk about that piece, and John does a demo. And then I hope you join us also for April 10th, where Jeff is going to do the data center product portfolio overview, and then John is going to do an Aruba Central overview. So that is the end of the presentation that we had. Thank you for joining, and we look forward to seeing you in the next session.